it's almost like that movie Welcome, where Nana Patekar says, "कौन हूँ, किसके साथ बैठा हूँ, कहाँ बैठा हूँ." When he's about to break that person's leg or whatever before the dialogue comes in. So he says, "कौन हूँ, कहाँ बैठा हूँ, किसके साथ बैठा हूँ," is what mindfulness is in a nutshell.
Hello, everyone, to the ADHD Developer AMA for this edition. Today, I'm going to be hosting the session, so which means you get to hear less of me talking, which I guess is good for a lot of people. So, with us today, we have my therapist, Drishti. Drishti is an RCI registered clinical psychologist based in Berlin who's been working in this field for the past 6 years. She works with both individuals and couples above the age of 18 in areas of interpersonal conflict, work-life balance, stress, life transitions and adjustments, along with adults with ADHD. She's also a well-being specialist at Zevo Health, Dublin. So I'll leave the rest of the introduction to Drishti. Welcome to the show, Drishti. It's really good having you here. We've been talking about you quite a lot, and I've been peddling a lot of the advice that I pay you to give me for free to a lot of people. So I think people can finally get it firsthand. So today we'll be going through, like, we have some prepared questions that our participants have given us. Apart from that, we will be taking some live questions as well. So Drishti, do you want to talk a little bit about your expertise and your experience and how you're feeling being here? Because I know that you do a lot of activities with other therapists. You work with a lot of these fields. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience there and how the world of mental health and specifically ADHD is shaping up in the last 2-3 years?
Okay. Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's a little early in the morning for me, so I'm sorry if I'm sounding like that. This is the first session, technically, of the day, but I'm excited to be here. And ADHD is something which is very, very close to me. I think I was screened very early on. Personally in my life. So I do also identify as neurodivergent. And I think they saw the signs and symptoms very, very early in school, where all my report cards would be filled with has potential but not able to reach it, talks a lot in class, very easily distracted, distracts everybody around them in the class. So I feel like there's a lot of, it's a very personal journey, which I sort of stumbled upon again during my MPhil. As a psychologist or as a professionally trained person in this field, I think it came about to me very, very recently, where I never thought I would niche down or I would only see a particular type of clients. But life happened, and I feel like now I do see more individuals who are neurodivergent. I don't see it as a disorder particularly, but I feel like being neurodivergent, I'm able to relate to them better. I do see that changing of thoughts rather quickly, and I feel like I am able to keep up. So I feel like sometimes there is a good fit, and that's why I have niched down to working more with neurodivergent individuals. Other than that, I've also run 2 ADHD support groups in the past year. These were both online, and unfortunately, they were not accessible to my own clients. But because obviously confidentiality, but yeah, very, very huge learning curve there, not just for the participants, but also me. Because I feel like ADHD is not something you have, it's something you live with for the rest of your life. It's like a part of your personality, right? It's a part of how your brain works. So it's always nice to learn from each other how to make accommodations, how to get people to make accommodations for you, how to, because it's more than just to-do lists, right? It's so much more than not being able to concentrate or not having inattention or like having inattention and impulsivity. So
I've heard a really good analogy about this, which is that everybody has, let's say, everybody has to carry around these marbles. And let's say, like, some people have 50 marbles, some people have 30 marbles. And, people without ADHD, like neurotypicals maybe, they have like a bag to carry their marbles. So whether they have 30 or 50 or 100 doesn't really matter. Yeah, some might spill out of the bag sometimes, but mostly they have a bag. But people with ADHD are literally carrying those marbles around in their hands, and some new stress gets added, or some new event comes, or some new scope gets added, and it's like you're carrying more marbles. And yes, some start getting spilled, and then you start collecting some marbles, and you end up. So I really related to that example quite a lot, like the disorganized chaos of it, especially for people who have not been identified yet. Like I got diagnosed with ADHD quite late in life, and
Mm.
for me it was like I had quite a lot of mental health diagnoses. So when finally it settled on ADHD, that was the only one that made sense. You're my therapist, so like this is for the rest of the people here. It really helped me because I got to know what I have. So yeah, like you said, it's more than just lists. It's more than like to-do lists. It's more than that. So
Mm.
our audience is actually interested in quite a like few things, since we have like an expert and somebody who's a specialist and somebody. By the way, guys, just wanted to tell you that Drishti's career choice has been affected by her diagnosis. She actually actively went into mental health. She's too modest to mention this right now. She actively went into mental health to understand her diagnosis and help others with it. So this is one of the like, and I mean, she's not paying me to advertise her right now, right? But like this is one of the things that really attracted me towards her therapy. And like, as somebody who has that level of empathy, that level of an inside view, and I'm not saying that neurodivergent people should preferentially go to neurodivergent therapists alone, but the kind of understanding and perspective that you will get from somebody who shares your condition will be different than somebody who doesn't. So this is the reason why a lot of women who give birth go to gynecologists. Like that's very similar logic. Yeah,
They
I mean,
should go to a gynecologist, right?
sorry, female gynecologists. I
Yeah.
meant right. Like sorry, they prefer female gynecologists because
Mm.
they or like men prefer male urologists. Like
But
I've
then
been.
there's also shame and other layers to it, right?
Oh,
Sorry.
shame. I mean, in my case, it wasn't so much shame as much as like, I mean, I had to go for some regular checkups, and my wife was like, "Why are you going? Why are you preferring the male urologist?" I'm like, if you, I mean, it's obviously if you don't have the equipment, how will you like know how it's supposed to function? So, but yeah, jokes apart, Drishti, can you give like a brief
Just a
explanation?
disclaimer, I don't agree to that. I feel like you don't necessarily have to have a lived experience to work with it.
Yeah,
I don't prescribe to that ideology, but good.
yeah, but
Hmm.
like, I'm just saying,
Works for you.
it
Yes.
helps me. It has helped me in a lot
Yes.
of cases. So, yeah, Drishti, can you talk us through a little bit about how does ADHD manifest in adults? Like, for example, people like me who got a late diagnosis. And you
Mm.
did mention about the report card, and I'm sure a lot of us are like hard relating right now. I'm also putting a lot of chats in the like our chat room right now so that people can engage. And it is something I related to. Like, I was a very outstanding student in my time. I've mentioned quite a lot, spent a lot of time outside standing, and like naughty child has a like makes careless mistakes,
Mm.
sacrifices accuracy for speed. Because for me, I used to finish every 3 hour exam also. I used to finish in 1 hour. It was so difficult sitting. That's why I don't like flights also. So
Mm.
can you talk about like maybe there are a lot of adults here, young adults, older adults, who may feel that they have got ADHD, or who may feel that they're close to something like a label diagnosis, but maybe they're not able to take that last step. So if you can just walk us through how it manifests in the workplace or manifests later on in adult life, I think that will be one of the major questions.
Right. So I feel like suddenly in the past 5 years, the awareness of ADHD has gone up significantly. The very fact that we're having this conversation, there are a lot of people who've definitely seen ADHD, even if they've thought about it or discussed it with their friends. I'm sure seen reels about it for sure. You have ADHD because POV, you have ADHD, and so on, right? So I feel like thankfully the awareness is too much, but unfortunately, like any other mental health disorder, ADHD is very easy to self-diagnose. It's very easy to sit in one place and say, "Oh, I'm procrastinating. I'm not able to concentrate. I have ADHD." So I don't think it's as simple as that. ADHD or any form of neurodivergence means that your brain is wired differently. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that you're not prescribing to the normal or the neurotypical, like you mentioned. It means that your brain processes things differently. I unfortunately also don't like the way ADHD is always described as chaos or messy, because a lot of people talk about how multiple tabs are open. I
We actually use this analogy. That's why I'm laughing. Uh,
Sorry.
but
Hmm.
yeah, the lived experience is different for different people.
Yes, but
Other
I'm
thing,
just saying that we don't have to pathologize. We don't have to say it's a bad
apologize.
thing, it's a disorder,
Yeah.
it's a shit, you have to live with it. Sorry for
It's
my
a
language.
bad name. See, at the end of the day, ADHD is a bad name. Like it
Mhm.
has had worse names in the past, and it is still a bad name as long as the D is at the end, right? People are going to think like, and this happens, right? Like people come and challenge and say the theory of evolution. Well, it's just a theory. So naming things is very important. Like even in
Mhm.
programming, since this is a programmer thread as well. So we all
Ah,
know, like the three hardest things in programming. The third hardest thing is naming things. So
right.
with ADHD, I also feel, Drishti, that I think casual usage needs to be countered, because a lot of people are like, even in like an official meeting, they'll be like, hey, I need to, I'm very OCD about this, or like, I have ADHD. And I've actually stepped in a lot of times and I've been like, hey, later on, like, I've taken them aside later. I'm like, this is a sensitive topic. You can't say these things. Like, oh, it's a proper disorder, right? So I got a question from Juhi. By the way, Juhi, somebody else, not Juhi or maybe Juhi, commented that you have a very sweet voice, Drishti. That must help you a lot in your career as a therapist. So people are asking what are the
Thanks,
special
Judy.
allowances we have to make for individuals with neurodivergence in general and ADHD in particular. And
Hmm.
I will hear out your recommendations for the room, and then I will talk about a little bit of what I have experienced in my workplace. Because I have a huge privilege, I acknowledge that, but I will still talk about it because that's the standard we should be aspiring for.
Right. We'll quickly go over the signs and symptoms, which was the previous question. I'll briefly talk about what the
Yeah.
textbook definition is. So, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. There are three main categories. There is the inattention type, which is people who are struggling cognitively. So, because they're not able to have that attention, they're not able to attend to one task for prolonged time periods, concentration is not there, memory is impacted, there is huge problems around sitting in one place. There is restlessness, also manifested as hyperactivity. And then there is the combined type. For somebody who has ADHD in the workplace, it would look like somebody who's procrastinating, taking very long to meet deadlines. And when they are able to meet deadlines, they're doing everything all at once. Or, like you said, being being in hyper focus, again, being able to finish all the work in like एक हफ्ते का काम एक दिन में, if that makes sense. And I feel like, yes, I feel like in your field it's very very common. There's a bug, you solve it, and then you're done for the next 3 4 days, and you're not doing anything. You're ready for.
For context, her partner is also a developer,
Hmm.
so she thinks that she knows our world, guys. Just saying. Please go
A
on this.
glimpse. Yes, I know a little bit. Don't underestimate me.
Yeah. But also, like, guys, this is also very similar to the dynamic we have in our therapy sessions. Every therapist and client dynamic is different. But I'm very lucky that Drishti and I share this dynamic. So our therapy sessions are less work and more like fun, where I mean, well, for me at least, where we where we uncover sort of stuff. But yeah, sorry. Go on, Drishti. So you were saying it's hyper focus helps us, especially in the kind of line of work
Problem
that we have,
solving work that you do.
problem solving
Yeah,
work. Okay. Okay. And there's
right.
a diverse challenge every day. That's there in almost all technology. There is some new challenge every day, something else that's coming up every week.
Which keeps your attention, right? Because this is what we're talking about in attention, that it's not that you can't attend to something. Your situation has to be exciting enough for you to do. So if you like playing the piano, or if you like playing the guitar, I'm sure you can spend 1 hour doing that every day. But if it is something like work, which is not exciting enough or challenging enough to you, there is very little that you will be able to commit to or you will be able to give
So
100% to.
actually, a really good point, because so I'll bring it to playing the guitar or playing the piano also, because I do a little bit of both. So with the guitar as a child, I learned it on my own. I always had this huge challenge because so a lot of my friends, they would get lessons. A lot of them would not get lessons. They would also learn it on their own. But how a neurotypical person learned the guitar versus how I learned it, so different. Like my friends, they would pick up like one song, one piece, and they will keep on repetitively playing it, playing it, playing it, playing it, playing it until it got like perfect. And then they would be able to play like one song really well. Whereas in my case, I would like learn the basics. I would learn the chords of the song. I would learn the rhythm. Then I would like, okay, so the joke is that in like guitar, right, you need five chords to play a million songs. Porcupine Tree actually made a song of that name called Four Chords That Made a Million. So, you know, five chords: G, C, E minor, D, and F. You can
Mm.
play 99% of Bollywood music. Yeah. And like 80% of pop music in general. This includes like Beatles and stuff, because you can arrange those into those. So yeah, that's how I learned the guitar. I learned it by like a very general, because for me it is impossible. Even today, if I have the motivation that okay, I have to, like, I went to my sister's wedding recently. If I have to perform, I will still sit and I will be able to do it. So wait, so now guys, we have this thing called a digression box. So for
Mm.
this episode, we are starting it. So anytime we have these digressions, I'm going to put it in the chat, and you guys can towards the end. We have 5 minutes left for digression boxes. So whichever ones you guys want, we'll talk about that. So I'm going to put guitar ADHD in the digression box. Now back to Rishi, what you were talking about
Thank
the
you.
workplace. So is there any special provisions that we can? By the way, Nikita says you have a sweet voice. Thank you, Nikita, for that. No, I'm just thanking her for making you conscious, Drishti. It's keeps the live stream fun. So about the workplace, what can people do? Like I think I mentioned this in my LinkedIn as well. Like,
Mm.
please attend this session if you, a peer, your reportee, or your manager has some signs of divergence, because it can help you empathize with them. It can help you work better with them. Like for example, I am very open with my ADHD, right? And I'm very lucky, very privileged that. I have bosses who are understanding and empathetic. So Adobe has very strict and strong policies about accessibility. Like if I have any accessibility challenge, I will be accounted. So one thing that Drishti you do is pairing, right? And I want to introduce the concept of body
Body
doubling.
double.
Body doubling. Yeah. So in programming we call it pairing. So
Okay.
programmers by default have a concept of body doubling where, like, you will all be sharing one screen and one guy will be coding, and three other people will be yelling instructions. Actually, we are all trying, like, that's a joke, but we're all trying to solve a problem together. So that is a form of body doubling. So in fact, I had like some recently, I had some massive bugs that we had to deal with in this fashion, and uh, I. I was waiting for it. I knew that for an ADHD person, some sort of a live challenge, where there is a performance element, or where there is a thrill element or a risk element to it, will bring out your best. So despite it being very late at night, my mind was working, and I was able to like coordinate with different teams and contribute a lot to the solution. So, so somebody is actually asking that, how can, like, ADHD people have often been shown to have higher creativity and all of that. So, well, again, I'm going to put in the disclaimers for you. I know you're going to say it as well. So, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि ADHD है. Just it's not like a movie, right? Where the autistic guy turns out to be Rain Man, counts all the cards and wins you millions of dollars in poker. It's life is not a movie, and all smart people are not the same. Like, just because your friend might be a really good programmer doesn't mean that they can fix your router. So please stop asking us to fix your routers. And they'll also know about biology, and they'll also know about genetics and stuff like that. So just putting those disclaimers aside, Drishi, can you address how a work environment can be made more ADHD friendly? Like today, we know dyslexia friendliness is possible, right? A lot of us have seen those websites where you have dyslexia friendly fonts. A new ADHD friendly font has come out. So
Mm.
these are very like technical ways, but in sort of an emotional way. Like we have people here who are leaders, we have people here who are managers, we have people here who are students and reportees as well. How do we adjust in the workplace? How do we balance together in the workplace?
Mm.
Like
Right. So
unity in
again,
neurodiversity, sort of.
I think the first thing is definitely to account for is awareness and acknowledgement. You need to know what ADHD means and you need to go beyond just the basics. I feel like one of the best ways to learn more about ADHD and lived experiences is definitely Reddit. Yes, it's a deep dark hole where you can spiral down very, very quickly. But I feel like it's as raw, it's as unfiltered there, and you can definitely understand the disorder, the how you feel having ADHD more is if you don't have access to a large population. One. Second, hear this person who's coming and telling you they're neurodivergent. Neurodivergent is, of course, ADHD, autism, and other others on the spectrum. Also, people with ADHD significantly struggle with TOM, which is time management, organization, planning.
What is EOM? The
So,
full form of EOM?
time
Execute.
management, organization, planning.
Acha, TOM. Okay, okay. Oh, Tom. Okay. So ADHD struggles with Tom. Cool.
Right?
Time management,
Uh,
organization, and
uh-huh.
planning. If it's
Time
planning,
management, organization, planning.
so won't it
Right?
be TOP? Top.
TOM, TOP. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Early morning.
Good. No, it's almost 9 o'clock, but not the point. So these are definitely things to maybe make accommodations for. So if there's like I work significantly with the PhD students, so it's nice to give them time, like a deadline. So if, like you said, if the person has a timeline or a date leading up to, it's really nice to check in and say, oh, are you doing well? Do you
Yes.
need help with it? Do you need an accountability or a body doubling session? Do you need to, I don't know, is there any other way I can make accommodations for you? Definitely helping them with organization. Most people who have ADHD will have multiple post-it notes, diaries, and notes. Yes, notes in multiple places around and in the room. So yes, I also have something very similar that I bought
My
recently.
entire room is full of whiteboards. Like
Yes,
my friends come to my house and they're like, my room is full of whiteboards. I have like a four
visual cues.
monitor setup, right? I'm usually watching something on the TV and working at the same time. And my friends are like, how do you concentrate on so many things at once? And
Hmm.
that is, I would say, a superpower of ADHD. Like right now, I'm replying on messages on the thread. I'm like writing down what you're saying. I'm
Right.
listening to you as well, obviously. So
Hmm.
all of that.
Right. So
Great.
help them with color coding, help them with getting organized. It's good to have a short-term, intermediate, long-term goals. It's fantastic if you're having a meeting with somebody who's neurodivergent and you're allowing them enough space and time to make notes. I feel like as a neurodivergent therapist, I think this is something that definitely helps me is to continuously make notes, not even verbatim, but just major pinpoints so I know what I was supposed to work on. It's great to exchange notes at the end of the meeting to see, oh, तुम्हें समझ आया मैं क्या बोल रहा था, or do you, are we on the same page, are we aligned in that sense? And also, of course, making very, very reasonable but not too many adjustments for them. So I feel like we can accommodate for ADHD because they're as normal as you are. They're probably just
Normative.
different in the way that they
We don't
think,
use the
more
word normal.
creative.
We don't use the
Huh?
word normal. We don't use the word normal. We say normative.
Normal, fine, whatever. Potato, potato.
You are the therapist. But yeah, okay. So what I'll try is I'll just summarize what you've said. Uh, uh,
I have
my,
more
and this-
points actually, but okay.
okay, you do?
Yeah, like maybe use something like a Pomodoro, or have a 25-minute work stretch and then a five. For some people it
That may
does
not
work,
work
not
for
for
everybody.
everybody.
That itself become because for me, what happened was I actually bought the physical Pomodoro timer,
Hmm.
and the
It a
tick
me too.
tick 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 of it drove me crazy. Like I literally went, I kept it in a different room, and like I mean, yeah, I mean, different things work for different people because if you have like let's say a high anxiety
Hmm.
affect, you might not do well with the Pomodoro thing
Right.
because the anxiety that the time is running out will keep hitting you. So okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a pause, Drishti, and I'm going to like summarize into like some 3 points, whatever you have said, and then we'll
Hmm.
go forward if that's all right.
Fair.
So this is guys, this is exactly how we have our sessions also. This is exactly how we work also. Like at my workplace, so I'll just break it down into three things, into the three main problems, right? For somebody in the workplace with ADHD. One is obviously time boxing and time management. So for that, what I do, I'm going to share with you because it helps me. I keep deadlines. So first of all, I try to like get a good project manager onto my projects. If I have to do it myself, so that's a different thing. But somebody who can, who's very nice, who can check in with you every 2 3 days. So checking in doesn't mean like danda karna or in Delhi we say chul karna. Checking in simply means, hey, are you comfortable? Are you like, in line with your deliverables and stuff like that? Again, that will depend on you, your comfort, your workplace, everything. So time boxing, like have deadlines for things. Second is keep feedback flowing. So I tell my managers this, I tell my teammates this, that for me as a person, as the kind of person I am, so I have like a slightly anxiety, like I have an anxious sort of a parameter in my presentation of ADHD. I tell them that, even if you're telling me like, you're not doing well, that's a bigger relief for me than no feedback. So bad feedback or constructive feedback for me is better than no feedback. So I keep the feedback flowing, right? So time boxing, keeping the feedback flowing, right? And the third one is a very generic advice, which I think Drishti is touching in different ways, and we can go on that as well, which is executive functioning. So to work in a workplace, you need to have executive functioning, right? Because that's literally what we are doing. We're executing our management directives. So to improve your executive functioning, you'll have to think of things like, what does that mean? It means, and we've discussed this before, we discussed the 10% rule, which is if you have to do something big, start 10% of it. Today, करना आपको कल है. You have to do it tomorrow. Start it today, go to sleep. By tomorrow, you will have a better idea of what you need to do, right? So these are some of the things, like improve your executive functioning, whatever execution looks like in your field. If you're a programmer, since this is specifically addressing programmers, like I can actually talk about some of those things. Like if you have to, let's say, you have to build an API, right, for something tomorrow or like within a deadline, and obviously before that there's an entire process. You have to sit down, you have to read the existing tech, you have to understand what's happening, you have to probably, some people do it differently, some people make notes, some people draw architecture diagrams. Do like a very rough version of that, right, Drishti? Like a very rough, low fidelity version of that beforehand, and then उसे fair बाद में करना. So three approaches, right? Like have a time box. Second is keep the feedback flowing, because workplace, it's a very complex situation, right? It's competitive at the same time. You're being evaluated. It's not what we would call a happy, safe environment. It's not an ideal happy, safe environment, because the world is designed according to neurotypicals, right? It's not designed according to neurodivergences by its very definition, right?
Mhm.
So these
I
are the
just
things.
like to quickly add, if you don't mind,
I'm done actually. Yeah.
two things that came out of what you were discussing is one, that feedback piece of it. I just quickly like to add, I have a couple of friends, actually not a couple of, I have one friend who I spoke to about, who has
Yeah.
ADHD, and she mentioned how every time she changes in her workplace, they know she has ADHD, and she has flexible work hours, and they've been very kind enough to have all of those accommodations for her. But they also give her feedback in the sense, every time that there's a change in medication,
Yeah.
there will definitely be some immediate, I think, a week, 2 week of adjustment period. So usually the boss will give her, or the manager, team lead, whatever, will give her a feedback saying, in the past 2 weeks you've been behaving like this. I
Yeah.
know, because has there been a change in medicines? So I feel like just going and keeping it out in the open as much as you can. And I also feel the other piece of it that I wanted to make a point on is anxiety and other social cues. So ADHD is not just the cognitive or the executive dysfunction that we've been yapping about for so long. It's also, I think 80%, if my stats are not wrong, people with ADHD will also have anxiety or another co-occurring mental health condition for sure. Most of us are masking all the time, which is we try to put on a face that everything is okay and I'm as normal as the next person in the room. So I feel like there are other things like rejection sensitivity, lots of other things that you can go back and read upon. I don't know if we have enough time to touch upon those, but I feel like people with ADHD significantly also struggle in their social environment. Maybe they're not able to read the cues enough, or they overread into the cues, they're oversharers, much like the both of us right now. So these are
Yeah.
also things to watch out for. Another quick tip is to have small rewards if you can, for your colleagues or for your teammates, for your juniors, for your whoever you're managing. It's good to give rewards. Rewards does not necessarily have to be money or bonuses. It can also be like a pat on the back, not physically, but like a good job. I see you were able to meet on the deadline, or I see you were able to finish by 12 o'clock. So, having things like that, these reward systems will definitely help. And also something that helps the both of us in our session, as you've been mentioning, is cue control. Having specific cues, especially in meetings, to say, okay, you know what, you've circled around enough, come back. So it's good to have like a non-verbal language. Maybe it could be a tap, or it could be a tap, it could be, I don't know, just a word that you use to say, okay, you know what, I understand, but come back, refocus, come back to what the train of thought is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we are getting some questions around this.
Mhm.
So actually, I'll take the question for you first, Drishti. Somebody has very nicely asked you, hello, Drishti, as a clinical psychologist, how do you balance the professional demands of your work with the empathy and understanding required to support individuals with ADHD in their workplace challenges? So this is coming from Desmond.
Thank you so much for the question. Can you read that out again?
Sure. So basically, he
Slowly.
was saying, how do you balance the professional demands of your work with the empathy and understanding required to support individuals with ADHD?
Okay. I definitely, I am not. It seems like a one person show, but it's not. I feel like there is a lot that is involved in the work that I do. There is definitely my own therapist. There is my own supervisor. There is also my own peer group of supervision that keeps me grounded. So I feel like I have a lot of resources to depend on, professionally and personally. I think I have created, I wouldn't say I'm privileged enough to have those resources, but I have been privileged enough to be able to create those resources for myself somewhere. So I think that definitely helps. Working with neurodivergent clients, I feel like it's a little exciting for me, honestly, because you don't, of course, in any session, you don't plan what's going to happen. You do have a basic structure, but the kind of conversations that I have are enriching enough for me to get recharged and excited to be doing the next session already. I also have a break between sessions where I sit and I do my notes, or I sit and ground myself so I'm ready for the next one. Sometimes it's half an hour, sometimes it's a couple of hours. I am doing my lunches and my meals in between. So I feel like being a therapist in general is not the most easy profession, but I think I've been trained for 7 years to do all of these things. So I don't know if I can give you a structured answer to this, but I feel like at this point in time, this is just second skin. So it just comes very naturally right now. Um, how does empathy come? I feel like because I can, when I'm talking to somebody who's neurodivergent, I can see those multiple tabs open. I can literally see them jumping from one onto the other. So it's easy to jump along with them in that process. I mean, you don't have to, like, sometimes you just let the person talk. Once they're done, I have notes ready enough to be like, okay, now that you've said whatever you had to, these are my pointers. Can we reflect on these? Do you have the bandwidth to reflect on these right now? Rest of it is homework. Because someone who is in therapy with me knows that they have to do homework. It's not the regular worksheets or CBT based homework, but there is a lot to go back, read on, reflect on. So I have a running joke, which we developed during my master's, which is we're all mirrors at the end of the day because we reflect so much.
That's nice.
But I feel like
Uh,
reflecting, acknowledging, sitting with your feelings definitely is something that I do myself and also recommend to most of my clients. I hope that answered the
Sitting
question.
with your feelings. My wife's a therapist, and that's the line she uses a lot, like sit with your feelings. Okay, guys, I'm going to bring us back to pro ADHD programmers
Do
part.
you think I answered the question okay? I think I did.
I think so. Yeah, that was a wonderful answer. I think you shared your own experience and you walked us through your journey. I
Thanks for the
respect.
validation.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get a comment on if it's not satisfactory. So we
Yeah.
have a very interesting question, which is, can you elaborate on, like Alicia is asking this. Thanks, Alicia. Can you elaborate on the specific challenges individuals with ADHD might face in a remote or hybrid work environment? What
Hmm.
adjustments can be made to ensure success in these settings? So
Hmm.
now that's a very interesting question because I work hybrid. I mean, I work remotely actually. You work remotely. So again, I can take this first since it's like ADHD programmers question.
Hmm.
You can back me up because you have actually seen the like evolution of my journey. So guys, for hybrid, I think at least for me, for ADHD, hybrids amazing, remotes amazing. Because when I used to go to office regularly, right? Like in my journey, I literally stopped in 2013. I joined Google. Before that, I was at these companies like Ernst and Young and General Electric. Very much like white collar, button shirt, tie, pant kind of companies where you have, and I used to get into so much trouble. I used to get into, my work was great. I used to get into trouble for like coming late or like leaving like whatever. Like I used to leave late because I work better later at night, but nobody sees that. People are very obsessed with these hygiene markers, like what time is this person coming into work and stuff. So I think getting into development helped, getting into this world helped where it's more result oriented. If it's remote, there are no stresses regarding that. There are no appearance like masking stresses, right? So when Drishti is mentioning masking, so there are so many masking symptoms. Like my particular masking symptom used to be over explanation. So I used to over explain myself so that I would not be misunderstood. So that was one of my masks, and it also comes from, I think, a little bit of people pleasing that is integrated into most Indians as we are growing up. So as if you're remote, at least for me, long story short, remote is much better. I don't have to like show up. I just have to do my work. I have been given flexibility by my management to work according to like some deadlines, obviously have to be met. Some common times have to be met. But within the ambit of that framework, I have been given autonomy and flexibility, which is something ADHD thrives on. Like, it's sort of like give us the destination, we will reach there. Give us a destination, give us a timeline, we'll reach there. Just don't tell us how to go. That is the sort of freedom that I have found in that. So, Drishti, do you want to? Oh, wait. Hello. What role do self-awareness and self-advocacy play for individuals with ADHD navigating their careers and advocating for necessary accommodations in the workplace? All right. So before
We
I
can
get
come.
to this,
Okay,
sorry.
I just quickly like to add, while you were very kind enough to highlight the cool things that remote work does for you, I feel like I disagree. I also feel like there's a bad side
Downside.
to it. The fact that there is not as much accountability, so there is no two people in the same room who are working with you. So I feel like a co-working space would be a little bit more ideal than remote working if you are remote working or working hybridly, because you see somebody working and that's cue enough for you to go back and working, because it's very easy for you to then slack off, lie on your bed and then be working, and then it's very easy to move from one tab to the other. I feel like you tend to procrastinate a lot more if you're remote working. Yes, you have flexible work hours, but it's also very, very easy to go on to the other side. One, the other piece of it is, I feel like it does allow you freedom like you mentioned, but it can also be very, very isolating. Again, yes, you don't have to mask all day, but you still don't have social interactions at all or as much. You just, I mean, you start dreading work instead of making it a fun situation, because when you go to work you have your smoke breaks, you have your walking breaks, you have multiple other things that are also added components to it. So I feel like not being remote, as long as you're able to hold up a structure for yourself, I think structure is what we usually miss when we're remote working. So if you're able to create that, it could be something as simple as having a separate room. I think I did this during COVID, when we were all introduced to remote work for the first time. Is I didn't have a lot of space. I was doing my MPhil. I would get up, I would never study in my room. I would take and study in maybe the living room or in my friend's room, or once I moved home, then in my grandparents' room. So there was a dedicated corner which was work, and there was a dedicated corner which is life, bed. So you're never working out of your bed, you're never working out of your bedroom or whatever.
Yeah. Absolute. I agree with this part so much because so I literally, I mean, I have my own office, home office, and it has a bed. But
Hmm.
like you said, I when I'm working, I'm here. When I'm
Hmm.
chilling or when I'm taking a break, I'm on the bed. And I
How
even
to?
do things like lights. Like if I'm working, I will have white lights on, and if I'm
Hmm.
chilling, I will have yellow lights on. So
You're
that's
again you controlling. You're in the
yeah.
transition process
It,
of work versus life.
Yeah, so we would call this, and this is something every developer is used to doing. It is called state management. So
Hmm.
so guys, like this is wonderful because especially for the developers out there, the language of psychology is very similar to our language. Like we have things like state management in therapy. We have things like thought schema, like very similar to database schemas. So essentially, a lot of our disorders or manifestations are like jump in here, Drishti, because this is more your thing than mine. A lot of our they're because of incorrectly implemented thought schemas. Like mostly you have trauma responses,
Mm.
coping mechanisms, and the implementation of your thought schema. So essentially, therapy is like a schema propagation, except that unlike technology, it doesn't happen with just one update command. It takes a long time, depending on your issue and on your situation, on your self-awareness, which we will segue to the next question, which Nisha has asked us. What role does self-awareness and self-advocacy play for individuals with ADHD in navigating their careers and advocating for necessary accommodations in the workplace? First of all, Nisha, thank you. That is a wonderful question. And I'm not just saying that to say that, because see, self awareness is at the root of everything. I mean, you go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you go to like existentialism, you go to any sort of reason why you're alive. Self awareness is necessary, definitely. Self advocacy, though, so that is a political question. Self awareness is a psychological question. Self advocacy is a political question. So I will say it's political because we are existing in a society and we each have to set our own boundaries. So let me give you an example of left handedness. It was found that post 1950, pre 1950, the number of left-handers in society was 3%. The numbers might vary a little bit. This is just some anecdotal statistics I'm bringing up. Post 1950, the number of left-handers had risen to more than 25%. So what happened? Did the number of people who were being born dominantly left-handed increase? No, just societal acceptance of left-handedness increased. Before, people used to think left-handers were sent by the devil. Literally, the word for left in Latin is sinister. Isn't it a sinister word? So what's happened with all of these mental health issues is that awareness is increasing, similar to AIDS in 1980, LGBTQI in 2000s. 2020 is the decade of mental health and mental health awareness. But yeah, so while I would say, you have to set your own boundaries, you have to be aware of where you are in life. Like, I have been in situations where I really needed a job, and in that job, if I start going and shooting my mouth off and saying, hey, I can't attend meetings at 10 p.m. because, I have like sleep issues. Look, I'm not saying don't do that or do that. I'm just saying I didn't do that at that time because I was afraid I would lose my job. Okay.
Mm.
So we have to set our own boundaries looking at our constraints and our situations and what we are ready to do for what. Like, for example, give you my example. I sort of like I could have gone for a much higher paying job, but that wouldn't have been remote. I decided to take a pay cut because for me, staying remote and having my mental peace and working on my own is a much bigger benefit than it is like to get a salary that is like eight figures or nine figures or whatever. So self-awareness, self-advocacy. So for me, I know that if I get into that environment, what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my health, how's it going to affect my family and my long-term health. That's where the self-awareness part comes in. Self-advocacy is different. Self-advocacy is, in my case, I am in a friendly environment. I have extremely good bosses. I have an extremely good management culture. I could go and I could extend this to them and say that, hey, these are my limitations. These are my strengths. Please help me. And I've been very clear. I've actually went and told my bosses that I flourish under positive feedback. I don't do so well given negative feedback mechanisms. And that's true for me because I have an anxiety type, right? So if I'm given negative feedback, I have a critical negative bias. So I will keep on thinking of that one negative, like, the typical shit sandwich, right? You say something good, you say something bad, and you say something good again. It's called a shit sandwich. It's called the feedback shit sandwich that when you're giving it. So that doesn't work for me. I told them that I will generally work better if you give me good feedback. So in the last 2 years, my work journey has been very good, thanks to my manager's empathy and understanding. So, Nisha, I hope I answered your question. Drishti, do you have any other perspectives to add to what I said about self-awareness and self-advocacy with ADHD and careers?
I feel like as soon as you're diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, the self awareness can generally be very, very overwhelming because there is so much content out there to consume and to understand and to make sense of. So, I'm sorry if you've just recently been diagnosed or you're screening yourself for ADHD. I would just say pace it out. Self awareness, while is great, But it's always nice to have a team. I usually say this when I talk to my clients, to have an army of resources. This can also be social support. It's good to have that, and that's where I think self advocacy comes into the picture. Choose your battles wisely is, I think, I'm not a legal expert clearly, but just figure out where and who will be happy and in a space to make accommodations for you. And I feel like that's the only piece of it that I can actually add. I don't know, maybe something to think about. There is there's a magazine for people who have ADHD called Attitude, ADDI like attitude, but the T is replaced with double D, like ADD, which is
Attitude. Wait, it's ADDITUDE dot
yes,
dot in.
.com.mag, I think. Attitudemag.com. I don't know. I'll have to check the exact website.
Okay, got it. Attitudemag.com. Yep, I'm posting the link in the group. So I
Hmm.
think we are almost at time. What
Hmm.
we'll do is we'll look at any other critical point that we have not addressed,
Right.
and then we'll just close out our session. Um, yeah, we have discussed strategies and support. We've discussed ADHD in the workplace. We have discussed some broader perspectives, misconceptions, resources, advice. All right. Yeah, I think we've addressed almost everything. Let me just check if any questions. So, how can organizations promote neurodiversity and inclusion in the workplace, specifically regarding ADHD? Excellent question, Arnab. So, I've had experience of this in two organizations. In fact, like both Google and Adobe were highly inclusive, diverse organizations. So, what I'm going to talk about is also going to help each and every person listening here, whether they're a developer or not, whether they're ADHD or not. This is going to help you in your workplace. So, follow this best practice before a meeting, right? Suppose you have a meeting, you have set up a meeting. Like there are three kinds of meeting, right? Meetings to disseminate information, avoid those as much as possible. Try to use wider communication. Second, meetings to take decisions. When those meetings are going to happen, they are the most critical meeting. The third is like knowledge transfer or other kinds of meetings that like, that you can listen to recordings. So decision meetings, make sure that you have as small an audience as possible and that the entire audience has a brief beforehand. Like what I would do is I would generally calendar it whenever possible, at least a week before or 2 3 days before, and I would give like a complete brief summary in the email, attach PDF of the brief, right, handouts or whatever, link to a poll, so that even before I'm going into the meeting, I have a poll that my participants have filled in about like where they are and what they want to do. So I am reaching there with information. Second, in the meeting, and we've discussed this again before, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them, and later tell them what you told them, right? This works for everybody, specifically for individuals with ADHD. How it helps is I essentially can plan my work according to my meetings because 50% of my work is meetings, 50% of my work is, let's say, deep work. Deep work you can plan for very easily, it's not very difficult. For meetings, just knowing I have a 1 hour meeting with these stakeholders 3 days later helps me prepare. It motivates me. So I prepare my resources to send before the meeting. I prepare my slides to present during the meeting. And after the meeting, I hand out leaflets and whatever. So in the meeting as well, I keep on announcing repeatedly that you are going to get handouts. You are going to get this material. And this is not something I have come up with. This is part of the accessibility directives that Adobe has designed to make sure, because see, everybody thinks at a different rate. Everybody might be not in the same space, right? Somebody is attending this meeting, they're very attentive, they're very whatever. Somebody else might have, their kid might be sick, right? Or they might be sick, or they might be going through something. It's not fair to expect 100% performance from everybody 100% of the time. That's the modern directive, right? That's the modern management directive. So make sure that whatever you're talking about at work, whatever you're presenting, whoever you are, whoever you're presenting to, you are giving them a chance to follow. You're giving them some sort of a handout, a transcript, a minutes after the meeting, after the discussion that they can follow. You might have noticed that we have started, we are trying to do this with these series. We try and give handouts, we try and give do's and don'ts, we try and give summaries. So this is one of the biggest things that you can follow in your workplace. I'm saying again, irrespective of whether you're a developer or not, whether you're ADHD or not, whatever you have, this best practice will definitely help you, because this is literally what I'm doing while explaining it to you right now, right? I'm telling you what we told you. So with that, I think we have covered everything.
What was the
Our
last
last,
question again?
uh, which one? The one I was answering right now.
Yes.
So that was basically effective strategies for individuals with ADHD to manage their workload effectively. No, wait, this was organizations promote neurodiversity and inclusion. Arnav Shinde. There is one other question
There
that
are also like multiple other things they can do, right? They talk about invisible illnesses whenever they talk about mental health illnesses. So I think one thing that definitely helps is having somebody on board, like having a counselor, psychologist, clinical psychologist on board definitely helps. Because not everybody like you is lucky or privileged enough to have bosses who understand, right? So it's why am I asking for accommodations when you don't have a problem? A lot of people who are also thinking about the fact that they may or may not have ADHD have not been screened, have not been diagnosed. So I feel like we're at the far end of the spectrum where you're diagnosed, you're talking about it, you are in workplaces that support it. I feel like there will be many, many people across that spectrum, right? Right. So I feel like that this is where that self advocacy and this is where the
self-awareness and boundary
organizations
setting.
can,
Yeah,
yes, can
yeah.
have, like we were talking about, accountability rooms, mentoring, coaching, things like that as part of their structure.
Very true. And as somebody mentioned here, like
It's not just an
diversity of
individual effort, right? It's not just me who is an ADHD person, or it's just not my team. It's the larger ecosystem at work, right?
definitely. We can take up one last thing, Drishti,
Hmm.
because I think it's quite a good question. It's quite a good point. Are there specific exercises or techniques to manage stress and anxiety related to ADHD challenges in the workplace? Like this is like completely something we can leave people with something very, very hard, very, very solid to chew on. Specific exercises.
There are no specific exercises, but I feel like mindfulness is definitely something that helps.
Mindfulness, I want to give a disclaimer. Please tell everybody the ADHD version of mindfulness and not the regular mindfulness meditation I struggled with for 15 years before discovering ADHD mindfulness.
Okay, so mindfulness is not meditation. Mindfulness is not sitting in one place and chanting or,
Removing thoughts.
yes, that is not what we mean when we talk mindfulness. Mindfulness is, I think, is the audience Hindi speaking?
Yeah, yeah, it's a bilingual podcast actually.
Okay, so then it's almost like that movie Welcome, where Nana Patekar says, "कौन हूँ, किसके साथ बैठा हूँ, कहाँ बैठा हूँ." You know, when he's about to break that person's leg or whatever, before the dialogue comes in. So he says, "कौन हूँ, कहाँ बैठा हूँ, किसके साथ बैठा हूँ," is what mindfulness is in a nutshell. So the easier you are able to bring yourself back, because that's what we've been doing when we are talking about something and we're jumping, we're able to bring ourselves back. When somebody who has ADHD is feeling rejection sensitivity, is feeling stressed, is feeling anxious, is feeling your body going into a stage of hyper awareness or just being more in your fight flight response, I feel like this is where you acknowledge it and you bring it back. You bring it back to right now. How do you do that? You do that through basic skills that you can find on the internet, like that 5 4 3 2 1 exercise, which is one of my
Mm.
favorites.
Yeah, box
Tapping.
breathing.
Yes. Having one of those, I can't find my pen for some reason, but having one of those tuck 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 pens
Your pens,
around you, having
fidget
like somebody
spinners.
to, yes, fidget spinners, just anything in general. I have Kinder Joy toys to fiddle with and break. But what I think one stop strategy that I personally help is bringing myself and grounding myself to the present moment whenever you're stressed out. I think this definitely helps. It's a very quick fix. And then you can address and in that moment prioritize how you want to react. So mindfulness is nothing but it builds that 5 seconds between your action and your reaction, leading into action into response, right? Um, so that's, I mean, I think I've oversimplified it significantly. But I feel like this is a very quick fix that I would usually use when I'm at work. Even if during the last 1 hour, even if my attention wavered off somewhere, because it did, let's be honest, while I was talking and while you were talking. So it was very easy for me just to hold on to something, look at my iPad, make some notes for me to bring myself back. So I feel like grounding is something most of us use unconsciously or consciously. Just use it consciously and it'll be your biggest tool. I'm
Yeah,
done.
And like Andrew Huberman said that you can just do this exercise for 17 minutes to
Hmm.
get this benefit for your entire lifetime. I'm just looking it up if it's just 17 minutes. So if you do it once in your life, like you just have to focus on the breath at the tip of your nose. And there is no difficulty. Like you don't have to be like, I have to remove all thoughts from my mind, or I have to contemplate all the 54,567 states of God while balancing plates and standing on one foot, walking a tightrope. No, just concentrate on the breath leaving and entering your nose and just relax. Whatever thoughts come, let them come. And yeah, so one last thing regarding mindfulness. So, especially for the workplace, okay, and for people who write code, this goes for like your PRs and your commits and your commit comments. For people who don't, this goes for your emails and your chats. Before you send a chat to a coworker, even if it's a hi, hello, asking for something, think once before you send it. I'll tell you why. Because this will build that habit of not sending things when you're in a heightened emotional state. And one of the things that I experience with my ADHD is often impulsive emotional responses. So taking a step back, taking a deep breath, rereading the flame email I'm about to write, right? That denigrates this entire person, team, whatever product for its complete uselessness. I just FYI, I don't write such stuff. But even if I'm writing something absolutely horrible, if I'm rereading it after 10 minutes, after 5 minutes before sending it out, chances are that the probability of my losing my job because of it will reduce exponentially. So that's one kind of mindfulness you can definitely practice, which is digital mindfulness, which is before you're sending anything out, please have a look at it once. All right, I think we
Things
are
we should
at
have
time.
done while doing exams. Remember how we missed the backside of the exam paper? Yeah,
Oh
if
yeah,
only
that's
we had
happened to
reviewed
you.
that.
Dude, I have gotten like hit by my mom. I've gotten warmed because I forgot that there were three more questions and I didn't solve them. This
Because they
happened.
were at the back.
I've studied for Sanskrit for my maths exam, like all of those things.
Hmm. Yeah. Sorry.
All right, I'm getting pings. I think we are at time.
Yeah.
We'll have to cut this short. Thank you so much for being with us, Drishti. And I think you will definitely be one of our repeat guests on this show, judging by the responses that we are getting.
More than happy to be here. But thank you so much for this opportunity. It was lovely having this chat in the morning. And I wish you guys all the best. If there is anything, uh, feel free to reach out onto the resources. I'll be more than happy. Is there a space where we can share resources? Is that something
Yeah,
that's,
there is a space. There's a
yeah.
space. I'll reach out to you. And before we leave, thank you for our participants. Thank you and have a great day.